a lot of the opportunities that I was provided with those opportunities because of somebody else.
If you had to pick something that you learned from him professionally, what would that be?
There's no substitute for hard work. There's no gimmick.
John Thompson has made his statement as he heads out the basketball game.
He did what he believed in. He did what he thought was right in different situations in his life.
Georgetown.
And I could see him having a real passion for the game. I could see him being an outstanding coach.
I don't want to do anything to make this man angry. That was truly my first impression of him.
He gave me an opportunity when everybody turned their back on me.
You were to look up the street right there, that's Harrison Elementary School. That's the grade school that I graduated from. You know how hard it is to coach talented people because they want to be creative.
The more he's here and the more he's being John and sharing with people and just telling his story, that his impact is going to be like a tsunami.
If I'm insecure, rather than say Coach Thompson doesn't like me, and there are a lot of guys from the media, I just didn't like them. I thought they were dishonest, and I thought they were lazy, and I thought they wrote stuff that was not accurate. I'm John Thompson Jr. This is my life, 365.
When you talk about Allen Iverson, it's better to talk about something negative. It sells more.
I've taken a team and given it back to the fans.
No, I throw it back in so I can catch him again.
My Life 365 with your host, Ron Thompson.
I thought the image and perception was extremely important because we live in a world of perceptions also. You know, I think that I wanted it to be perceived as being professional. I wanted to be perceived as being orderly for my own sake, as much as for anybody else's too. And I thought that that was extremely important. I had a great childhood because my mother and father provided the foundation of love and care. You know, I always thought that they were there. They made me feel secure because they taught me what not to want.
And my mother, being an educator, told us that no matter what anybody said, that we could accomplish anything we wanted to do, just keep on doing it. And we kept doing that, and that's the way John kept doing his things too.
Even when I was insecure, when I was having a lot of difficulty in school in my early ages, my mother always told me to speak your mind. She said, speak your mind. She said, don't be afraid to say the things that you believe. They provided me with the psychological security amidst all of that which we had to deal with. We were classified as being poor and never felt like you were poor. I had to go to college to realize, when you heard the criteria for poverty, you know, to realize that we were not, I thought we were middle class. We had to move out of project because I think my father got like a 10-cent raise or something, and they had limitations on it.
Poppy wasn't an educated man, but yet Poppy and Grandma made sure education was prominent in your life.
He would always say that get your education, that's something the white man will never be able to take away from you. You know, but those were private words. Those were words. My father was not an offensive person or a person who made people feel uncomfortable, but within the privacy of our home, that's the kind of thing that he was saying. It was very important for him that you got an education. Hell, I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I'm in the 5th and 6th grade, and I'm having trouble in school. You know, so, you know, you get to a point where in your mind, it was important for me to win.
I think that he used my mother. If it was a problem, that she would take care of it, and which she did, because she got Sametta Jackson, the reading teacher, to show that he couldn't read. And that was his problem. That was the only problem. I thought it was a racial thing, to be completely honest, because they kept on saying that certain things that he couldn't learn, he couldn't do this, and he couldn't do that. If you can't read, you can't comprehend. And that was the problem.
Police Boys Club number 13 that I went to was right down the street here. That's the first Police Boys Club I ever belonged to. If we were to look up the street right there, that's Harrison Elementary School. That's the grade school that I graduated from.
Really?
Probably one of the first teams I ever played on was up at Harrison. I played basketball with Sandy and Bob and, you know, the guys in the neighborhood, and they taught me the importance of wanting to win.
He was a big kid, was kind of shy at first. And
When I first saw him, I said, this big guy, you got to play some basketball or something. Been in this neighborhood. But he didn't like basketball. He liked baseball.
If those guys hadn't made me play basketball, they hadn't picked me up and carried me from my house, they even said that, you know, you can go to school, you can get an education, you can use this. I mean, you ain't gonna be Babe Ruth. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You're tall, you better go on and play. Be like Rabbit, you know what I mean? Which Elgin Baylor was who we called in the neighborhood. Went to Spin Yard a couple of blocks from the house where I was living at that time. You know what I mean? Those were the examples that I saw.
Over the summer of his first year, he said he made it a mission to get better. And I went over to play him one time, and I'm at his playground, and all of a sudden, all 4 guys on his team quit because he shot everything he touched. They all quit. I knew why he shot everything, because he said he wanted to be better and he wanted to be a scorer. But the next year, he was legit. He was a legit player.
In high school, you guys had an incredible win streak. Describe what that time was like, you guys just running through teams at that point.
We were just big, strong, we could shoot, and we just feared nothing or no one. And we walked through people.
What effects did segregation have on you guys as teenagers?
Wow. I think some good, some bad. At the time, they were bad. They were good because we had a good group of people who understood the bigger picture of things, who were focused like your dad.
Discrimination, not segregation, was the worst thing that ever happened to black people because they made you feel it was you. When you segregated everybody, you knew it was because of your color. But they had to have a rationale for mistreating you.
The one championship that the team that we were on never won in Washington, D.C. was the Jello Boys Club Championship because the black players are not allowed to play over there.
Pop, what impact has Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King had on your life?
Enormous impacts they had on my life. I always would reflect on Rosa Parks and said, I'm certainly glad that that little nurse who provided an opportunity for all of us, who sat down on that bus and took a stand, didn't feel that she had to be the Queen of England in order to sit down on that bus. And as a result of it, she caused a lot of very, very significant people to be moved up the ladder that they would have had a difficulty in moving up. So I have a great deal of respect for her. It goes without saying that I have a great deal of respect for Dr. King and those people. A man offered his life up for what he believed in. I think that you know, is very significant and it's very inspirational because you need to have a hero. You need to see an example. You need to hear people who are not afraid to take positions and say the things that they had to say.
Coming up on My Life 365 with Ron Thompson.
You knew that great things were in the future as far as Coach Thompson was concerned because he had put together a powerhouse basketball team at St. Anthony's High School.
When I first came to Georgetown, the priest told me, I want you to go to the NIT periodically. That's what he said. Well, I was laughing in the back of my mind. I said, I'll be damned if I want to go to the NIT periodically. And I'm nodding my head, okay, okay. You know what I mean? I'm going to go periodically to the NIT, all right. You know what I mean? I want to win.
In the back of your mind now, you had loftier goals. And in having those loftier goals, you had to have ruffled some feathers at times.
Well, it ruffles a lot of the insignificant people's feathers. You know, I had a great deal of support from the people who were important. You know, the president of the college, the administrators, a lot of the faculty, once they see that you are sincere about making kids go to class, making them get an education.
Georgetown was the first program to have an academic coordinator. Georgetown was the first program to have that position where that person was responsible for just monitoring the team and helping, making sure everyone was on point with what they should do up campus, what they should do at the academic part of it. And now everyone has them.
When he had Miss Mary Finland heading up the academic reinforcement part of his program, the academic advisor, that was to keep him in check, and he gave her responsibility to run that show from the academic side of the house. Anybody going to Georgetown knew that they had to toe the mark academically as well.
I remember we played in South Carolina, and we talking, I think it was 77. And a lot of times when we travel to other cities, especially the South, as a black coach and a black team going to Georgetown University, you know, most of their help was black, and they would be in awed. Y'all boys, who y'all here to play? You boys gonna play University of Alabama? Yeah, okay. And then once we start beating Alabama, Georgia, and schools like that, Dayton, you know, we would get back to the hotel and they had their own little private party. I mean, they were smiling more, and as they served the food, and you know, yes sir, yeah, Georgetown beat them. They shined the guy's shoes. That's what the climate was like.
I thought that was extremely important, you know, for our guys when we went on an airplane to be in coat and tie. You know, I wanted them to understand when you got on a plane, you don't yell and holler. We don't go in a restaurant and you start, you know, acting like somebody that's crazy. We in the locker room, we carried on a lot of foolishness. We in the gym, we carried on a lot of foolishness. You know, I wanted the guys to deal with themselves.
The pressure that I saw on him was understanding his role. Yes, as a black man and the role model and the image that people would see of him, and knowing he was making changes, but really out of concern for the lives of those kids who he felt he was helping to raise.
Dean Smith helped me a lot as it relates to the structure of intercollegiate athletics at the college level. He told me a lot as it relates to the politically being able to survive. He exposed me to things that most white men never tell a black man. He talked to me at a level that blacks talk to blacks.
How helpful was that for
Extremely
him to do
helpful, extremely helpful.
Why?
You know, because of the fact that you didn't have to find it out yourself. You knew. He had already read the house for me.
Georgetown, that's the ball game, the national champions.
How satisfying was it for you to win a national championship?
I wanted to win, you know, and that part of me as a competitor, that part of me as a basketball person, I wanted to be successful.
There's so few coaches that they get the opportunity to say they had a chance to coach in the Final Four, and then the number of coaches that can say they won a national championship is even smaller. That's why we do what we do, to be, you know, to cut down the nets.
It was no small feat. He had, you know, been through media, work with the kids, you know, all of the battles and avenues that it takes for a coach to get there, especially being the first African-American coach to accomplish that.
Coming up on My Life 365 with Ron Thompson.
All that portraying of I didn't like the media is bull. And I don't know how to put it any other way. That's people who I really didn't like portraying me as something, and people who are afraid to approach me accepting it. Dealing with conflict was something that you, me, any African American had to always deal with. Being not accepted was the norm, particularly in the world that I traveled in. But I was accepted by a lot of the members of the media. See, that's one of the most misleading things in the world, that people say to me, well, why are you a member of the media and you didn't get along with the media? Well, I wouldn't have been a member, I'd have been a hermit.
John probably had a love-hate relationship with the media because he did things his way. He did it the way he felt would be successful based on what he knew to be the markers for success that he wanted his kids to attain, and also recognizing the challenges associated with the adjustment year of being a freshman in college.
Honestly, I don't think that I ever tried to do things to make somebody else's job hard. And I think a lot of times people looked at me and they thought of me as just doing out of spite the things that I did. I never will forget that at one time at the Washington Star, there was an editor who didn't like me. The guy just didn't like me, and there were some reporters there who did not like me too. And I knew it was personal at that time, you know, and I never will forget and respect this guy. That one guy who I didn't get along with at all came to me, and he was very upset and befuddled. And I was like looking at him sort of like the way you're looking at me now, wondering where he was coming from. And he said, I want to tell you something. I don't necessarily agree with how you do things, but my editor has told me to get you. He said, and I don't do that. All reporters weren't bad. All reporters weren't unfair to me. Some of them said things that were inaccurate about me because I did not give them accessibility. I didn't pick them up at the airport. I didn't sit down for hours at dinner and talk to them. I didn't kiss the all that portraying of I didn't like the media is bull. And I don't know how to put it any other way. That's people who I really didn't like portraying me as something, and people who are afraid to approach me accepting that. I never spent a lot of time trying to convince anybody any differently. I didn't sit down and say, oh, I do like you all. I don't like some of you. You know, why are you saying this about me? You know, I mean, if you're gonna formulate an opinion about me and you don't know me, then I'm not gonna spend a lifetime trying to explain to you how I am.
Did you ever foresee you having that same success in that field as you had in your other field?
I've had fun, you know what I mean? We got a couple of little awards when we first started, Doc, Al, and I walked into the radio station and they asked me to come on at NCAA time to talk about the NCAA, then they asked me to stay. I don't know what they expected. When I got there, Doc and Al were the luckiest things that ever happened to me because they taught me how to do it. Hell, I didn't even stop for a commercial. I just kept on talking, and Doc and Al, you know, said to me, you know, hey, that's how we get paid.
Something football. You asked me, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's happening here? What's happening there?
Yeah.
I'll bounce back to you, like I say. Say, Coach, you got what's wrong with your players?
Yeah.
What's wrong with the NBA or what, NFL, whatever?
Yeah.
Cats doing drugs, but
No,
I
that's
always
good.
thought I got something every day.
I thought about that yesterday. I don't care what we do. We gotta either extensively talk about it or tease it.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with you.
He talks about everything. You know, one of the common misperceptions on coaches that, you know, that everything is a race issue. It isn't. He gets behind an issue. There's nothing better than listening to him talk about the issues.
I said, you know how hard it is to coach talented people? Because they want to be creative. They want to express themselves. They don't want to conform. I said, you had to do a great job. Don't go telling nobody that you were a good coach because you had great players. There's enough idiots that are going to say that.
John's perception and how people who don't know him think he would never be a radio guy. I think he's capable of doing whatever he'd like to do in radio if he chose to do that. I think he's unlimited in terms of his potential and abilities. Now, whether he chooses to do that may be a different story. But in terms of skill set, there's nothing he can't do.
Coming up on My Life 365 with Ron Thompson.
He definitely wanted to be in the Hall of Fame. Without a doubt, that's something, and that is something that was special to him. And I think it's just to be recognized as one of the special people in this sport.
One of the key things I remember you saying to us growing up is that I don't seek their praise, so I don't have to accept their criticism. You wanted to get into the Hall of Fame. Why was that so important to you?
It did mean something to me, and I can't explain that, but you knew and I knew. I was very upset the first 2 times I didn't. And that's counteractive to what you said, because I said to you all growing up that I don't want to accept their praise, and then I don't have to accept their criticism.
He definitely wanted to be in the Hall of Fame, without a doubt. That's something, and that is something that was special to him. And I think it's just to be recognized as one of the special people in this sport.
I never will forget, Mike Krzyzewski called me up, and I didn't have a great personal relationship with Mike Krzyzewski, and he almost sounded emotional. He was so upset that I didn't get in the Hall of Fame, that they didn't put me in the Hall, and that meant something to me.
I think he's brilliant, first of all, and I think he pushed basketball ahead, and the African American athlete in basketball ahead more than anybody in the history of the college game.
It was important for me to get this ring. I wear this ring all the time.
Growing up, we knew nothing else other than being your son, or nothing. Tiffany knew nothing else other than being your daughter. So we didn't know or come to expect anything differently. But the impact that you had when people come up to us, it makes us think sometimes, well, damn, I guess Pop did some good things.
I don't think you define yourself. I think other people define you in life, you know what I mean? I don't think that you run and try to say that, you know, this is what I am to my kids, or, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. It just never happened that way, you know what I mean? It's just, you do what you gotta do, but a lot of the time I didn't spend with y'all. I was doing some of those things for which people might say, you know, well, thank you.
How would you like Pop to be remembered?
You know, honestly, I've not thought about that question, but if there's ever an understanding that it is and always was for him so much more than about what happened on the court, that it was about shaping, molding, preparing young men, the ones that he coached, as well as creating opportunities for others to grow.
The more he's here, and the more he's being John and sharing with people and just telling his story, that his impact is going to be like a tsunami.
I don't see myself as being no major hero. I just used the platform I had to do a couple of little things, and probably a lot more that I could have done, a lot more that I should have done. You know what I mean? But I did that which I thought I could do at the times that I thought I could do it. People may come up to you and say something nice to you, that I respected what you did. My mother, I get a lot of my mother or my father really liked you. You know, that is important to me, that has been, but I never sat there and perceived myself as somebody who was saying things that black people would follow or listen to or rally around. I'm like Chief Joseph when I left Georgetown. I will fight no more forever. In other words, I want to enjoy myself. Well, I'm gonna be Chief John. I will fight no more forever unless you push me too far.
At the time, they were saying, Hoya paranoia. Guess what now is the battle cry for most of the teams that go out there? It's us against the world. It became a battle cry.
People didn't realize that I danced, I cracked jokes, because they took sound bites out of your life and tried to define you. And that's all you privied them to.